Ladies and gentlemen, Wang's coming at you here with another Tournament Advanced Wars game. Today we're checking out my game from round 2 of the Advanced Wars Quack Cup, the weird and wacky gimmicky high funds tournament with lots of weird rules. You may remember my first game. I was playing as Von Volt against Grit on a map dominated by pipe runners. Link up here in case you want to check that game out. I ended up winning that, which means I'm advancing on to round 2, and this time around I went up against yet another Grit player. Lots of Grit players in the Quack Cup because most of these maps are not very Grit friendly, but they're low tier, so they allow Grit anyway. This is a tier 3 matchup, but they allowed Grit on it because this is not a very Grit-friendly map, and this means that you're going to see a lot of Grit players because people go like, oh wait, Grit is available here? Of course I'm going to pick Grit because, you know, people like playing Grit. It's fun to spam artillery, especially in a tournament setting, even though he does have some pretty significant weaknesses on this map, which we'll get into later. Due to this, I knew that there was a big chance I would go up against Grit. I think Javier was banned, even though it was tier 3, so I spent a lot of time thinking about which CO to pick. I was contemplating Adder because, you know, Adder, he's pretty damn good against Grit with his movement powers, even though he's like one tier below tier 3. In high fun, sometimes you can get away with that because it's a very weird format. So I was contemplating Adder. I was also thinking maybe Jake or even Jess because this is a pretty funny map. You can spam a lot of units here. So I really wanted to get some movement, but I also thought, you know, what if I don't go up against a Grit player? Then it might be better for me to pick Kindle, because she is really strong in tier 3. Lots of properties on this particular map, which we'll get into later. So I went back and forth, but ultimately I decided to settle on Kindle. And I did actually end up going up against Grit, and that actually made me a little bit sad because this matchup, it's not fantastic for Kindle. This is definitely not her best matchup, at least not in high funds. She does have, you know, she does do a decent amount of damage on this map, lots of properties for her to sap HP off, but she doesn't have any movement, and against Grit, you really need extra movement because you want to take down those artillery lines before he can set them up and just become absolutely unbeatable. And I don't have a single movement boosting power, which is a little bit annoying. Grit is very, very strong. If you let him build up and you let him reach a critical mass, then there's pretty much nothing you can do. There is some fun play on certain maps. You can actually see high society being popped here if you have a lot of properties and you need a lot of firepower to bust through a heavily defended Grit wall. But again, movement is really what you would need in that situation, and Kindle doesn't get any movement at all. But she does have some play on this particular map. It's called Overflow, and this is a wild map. You have not 2, not 3, not 4, you have 5 bases, and this is absolutely incredible. This means Urban Blight's gonna do a lot of damage whenever you pop it. 5 bases and 1 airport, as well as 2 comm towers, so it's a very, very dynamic map. Now, most of these bases are surrounded by a river, and you actually need to take a very convoluted roundabout way to get to the center. All units that are being constructed here actually has to go around here to get into the center, which is really weird. It takes a long time to reinforce into the center. It's the only reason Grit is allowed on this map. Normally, in any sane 5-base map, any normal map, Grit would be unbeatable because he can build 5 artilleries per turn. And he can still do that, but his artilleries will take a very long while to reach the center. But once they do, you are on the clock, because with 5 artillery being built every single turn, that means that Grit is very quickly going to reach a point where you cannot kill him. There's just too much artillery on the map. If you attack into it, he'll just shoot you down, and he'll just continue to build up a critical mass, and he'll just edge you off the map. Now, you may notice there are labs on this map. When there are no HQs present, the labs acts as the HQ. So that means that capturing the opposing player's lab will win you the match. There's a single black boat on these labs to protect them from being just rushed down by Sami infantry or whatnot. But these labs are very exposed because, as with most maps, the Overflow has a strong side, weak side, and on your strong side you have 4 bases, and on your weak side you have 1. So it's a 4 versus 1 base, which means that this map is an HQ rush. You need to rush down your opponent's lab, or otherwise they're gonna rush down yours, and it pretty much is a race to see who can take down the opposing lab the first. But one thing that makes this very tough is that your lab is on your weak side. So you have 1 base to protect your lab with and 4 bases to assault the enemy's lab with. Now against Grit, this changes because Grit doesn't want a lab rush. He's not very good at that. What the Grit player will do is funnel all of his artillery over here to protect his lab. and then he will just try to defend as you mercilessly try to crush his lab. So it becomes a very, very, very like aggressive matchup, and this map ended up being absolutely wild. Let me tell you, it was insane. My opponent for this particular round is named Femboy, very funny username, and you might be seeing a lot more of this player moving forward. I'm not ready to reveal why exactly, but if things go according to plan, you'll be seeing this player a lot more. So take note of this name, you know, aside from the meme potential. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I say it's time to begin the matchup. So, most of the bases, they do start out uncaptured, leading to a pretty slow start of this particular match. And you obviously want to go for the bases first. That's pretty much a no-brainer. And yes, I am pressing wait on my black boat here. This is a tournament game. I want to make sure that I'm moving all my particular forces. But I am going for this airport really quickly. Of course, I want to get those battlecopters out as soon as possible. Against grid, battlecopters are your best friend because you want to force the grid player to build anti-air. Every anti-air that he builds is an artillery he will not have. So battlecopters need to be spammed often. And then as you progress into the late game, you want to grab bombers, because against Grit, you need to bust through walls. He will put infantry in front, artillery in the back, and whether or not you can defeat Grit depends on your wall breaking skills. You need to be able to bust through his lines and deal damage to his artillery early before he sets up a wall. And if you don't play aggressive, if you sit back and you let the Grit player just build up a force, then you will just lose. You will reach a point where it's pretty much impossible. Now Femboy here, building an APC, pretty smart. You want to grab those transports early, get them over, and start to capture. There's lots of properties on this map. There's also an island with 2 properties that you definitely want to get. That's 4k income, so you can't just ignore that. You need to absolutely get it, or otherwise you're gonna suffer economically. So I'm building a transport copter here instead of a battlecopter early on, because I want to use this transport copter to ferry infantry across the river and eventually grab this island right here. This transport copter can allow you to do some funny boosting, because again, you can, for example, you can put the transport copter here or here to boost infantry over the river, which can help them reach some properties early on. But APCs are good too, but I'd say transport copters are probably a lot better on this particular matchup. But you kind of want to do both. In this map, you can definitely get away with building transports early. So yeah, my opponent here building his first artillery. The first of many. You're going to see so many artillery in this particular matchup. Oh my goodness, you're going to see so much artillery. So here you can already see I'm using the transport copter to build an infantry here, boost it down onto this river. This will allow me to reach one of these properties one turn earlier, and that's already going to make the transport earn itself in. But the name of the game for me in this particular matchup is tanks and neo-tanks. Medium tanks are way too slow. I don't think I'm going to build a single medium tank on this particular matchup. Medium tanks with their 5 moves, it's just not going to cut it. It takes too long for them to get to the front lines. Yes, they have firepower, but they also die very easily to artillery. Tanks, neo-tanks, battlecopters. That's going to be the unit composition that I need to go up against the grid player here. But first things first, the capture phase. Just make sure that we get as much money as possible. This map has a very long and drawn-out capture phase because of how big it is and how slow this map is to start. And of course, going up against the grid player, the capture phase is really where I'm at my strongest, because of course it takes so long for the grid player to get artillery out in this particular matchup. Like, he only has 2 at the moment. He is building a battlecopters, which is smart. But overall, the capture phase is where I definitely need to exert a lot of pressure, interrupt as much as possible, take advantage of the fact that my opponent has a very low firepower, minus 20% firepower, and the fact that he doesn't have that many artillery out. Now, he has to build battlecopters, and that's smart. He wants to build battlecopters. You can't neglect battlecopters as grit in high funds. Yeah, sure, they have 20% less firepower, which is kind of bad, but you know, they're still necessary. Now, here my opponent actually base skips to get an artillery out. With 5 bases, I think you can be excused for base skipping every now and then. I think the unit cap in this particular map is like, I think it's 60 or 70, so you can afford to get a lot of units out, but there's still a chance that you might actually hit the unit cap. So I don't think it's overly detrimental for Femboy here to base skip just to get that artillery out. But yeah, not much to say about this particular matchup now in the early stages. Both players are just kind of moving out. I build my first fighter because, again, there's 2 battlecopters on the map and probably soon to be a 3rd. So the fighter is going to be nice. Again, any unit with high movement is going to be king against Grit. Even fighters are going to be very useful because you need to break through those battlecopters. Now here, Femboy actually decides to interrupt my cap with an infantry and gets shellacked pretty hard for it. But again, he is denying 2k income from me by doing this. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a nice little boost here with this transport copter. Pretty smart. Pretty smart. Uses his APC to funnel units out as well. Starting to set up defenses around his lab. Building artillery out. Again, I'm going to apply a lot of pressure to that lab very quickly, so he needs to get his units out into position. So just moving out, and builds 2 anti-air and 2 artillery. So again, that's 2 artillery that he's not building. So again, just put those air units out as quickly as possible. Now I'm going for the comm towers as well. No engagement has taken place yet, aside from that solitary one, but I decided to take out his infantry because why the hell not? You know, every infantry you can get rid of against Grit is very valuable because that is one less wall that he has to hide his artillery behind later on. And as a Grit player, you don't really want to be spending the mid to late game producing infantry. You want to produce artillery. So taking out a solitary infantry from any Grit player is going to come back and help you out later on in the match. Now, yet I'm not building any Neo-tanks yet. I'm still just building relatively cheap units. Anti-air tanks. My fighter has been like the most expensive unit that I've built so far. But you can see already he's starting to set up a convoy around his lab because he knows where the pressure will be applied. But look what a roundabout way he has to send all of his units around to protect his lab. So this is where I can intercept his artillery convoy. This is where I can start to apply pressure. But already I'm on the clock. I'd say I probably have about 6 to 7 days to really punish him before those artillery start to just become unbearable. Look at that, 4 artillery coming out from the base right now. I mean, this is insane. He's playing defensively. He knows he needs to set up a good wall against me here. If I can find a crack in his defenses and take out some artillery early on, then I'm in a very good spot. Even if I can sack tanks to like damage his artillery, that's very good for me. Now here I'm going for the island. And both players are now just starting to capture all the properties on their side of the map. And here, I decided to sack a battlecopter. Or not necessarily sack it, because again, he only has a solitary battlecopter that can attack mine, but it's a battlecopter with minus 20% firepower. Now, he's still going to do a decent amount of damage to me, but I'm happy to sack a battlecopter to take out an artillery on the front lines, or at least to weaken it. I am happy to do that, because Grit's units are more valuable than my units. A single artillery that he set up, it's going to take him about 6 to 7 days to reinforce a new artillery into this position. So, and it only takes me a few days to have a battlecopter reach the front lines. So, tempo-wise, even though like value-wise, throwing away a single battlecopter to destroy an artillery is not quote-unquote worth it for me, tempo-wise, it's earning me a lot of play. Because, again, battlecopter is easier for me to get battlecopter to the front lines. It's harder for him to get artillery out of the front lines. That just bought me time. That's 1 less artillery that he has on the front lines. And yeah, sure, it still has 4 HP, but he still wants to pull it back for repairs. And it's going to be stuck like 3 turns repairing itself back up to full health. Again, all I'm playing for right now is time. I need time to crush him and capture his lab. This game is all about time. And here, just going hyper aggressive with the tanks. Don't bother with medium tanks, it's all about movement, so I'm just spamming out tanks here. Here he decides to send one of his battlecopters to interrupt my cap. I was a bit puzzled by this because this is very reckless. He's going to lose an infantry from this. And again, you see, 4-8, it's decent. I mean, he does, at this point, he does have 2 comm towers, which means that this battlecopter is quote-unquote normal. That offsets the firepower penalty. So, but, I consider this a decent trade, all things considered. He takes down some more of my infantry. Played a little bit recklessly with this infantry, I will admit. Probably should have been a bit more careful. And the artillery convoy is now really starting to move heavily into position here. I mean, this is quite insane. He's not using his transports super well, in my opinion. Probably could have found some more use for them, but here, just using the transports to transport infantry to the front lines, putting them in front. He knows that the attack is coming. He builds a fighter. Has to build a fighter. Really has no choice. I'm going to start building bombers soon, so he needs to be quick. But using his transports mostly to get his infantry away. Has to build 2 more. Again, you do have to put some infantry into your build order. You can't just build artillery because, you know, if you lose the ability to capture, then you're going to be in problem. You're going to be in trouble. But here, I decided to capture this city. I just want to draw his infantry out from his wall, make him stretch out. It's very tough as Grit to make the decision whether or not you should move out of your wall to capture properties, or whether or not you should just bunker up. Against the Grid player, you definitely want to be ahead in income, and you can see that I am ahead in income right now. If you're tied with a Grid player, you're pretty much behind. Here, I could go for the cap, but I decided to go for the attack instead, just trying to kill as many infantry as I can, just to weaken that potential future wall, because I know that moving forward, there's going to be a lot of wall breaking coming up. But here I decide to actually go in. There's nothing to really threaten this battlecopter. So, you know, why not? It works, right? And here I build my first Neo-Tank. Again, against Grid, you need some Neo-Tanks. Tanks alone are not going to bust through the walls. So you do need to get some Neo-Tanks out, because they can one-shot infantry on planes, which is really nice. A little bit of a Manx infantry here, I will admit. Little bit of a Manx infantry. Not completely, but just a tiny bit. And again, just look at all those artillery, man. Oh my goodness, so many artillery. So many artillery. Oh. You can tell he knows where the attack is coming. He knows where the attack is coming, and he is moving every single one of his units over there. It's pretty insane. Here he's being a little bit ambitious, I think, moving those units forward. But making a wall with my battlecopter is kind of funny, actually. So yeah, here I do think he's overextending a little bit, moving his artillery forward. This is scary what he's doing. He does have these 2 mountains, which is very nice. These mountains will help protect him quite a bit. But I do have air units coming. But overall, it's not a terrible wall. But I think he's playing a little bit ambitiously here, because look at all the tanks I have coming towards him. Now I will get these properties, which is nice. I'm sending a Neo-Tank down on my weak side because I noticed that he has a lot of anti-air here, and I'd like to shoot them down if at all possible. So in comes the battlecopter. Tanks are coming in as well. You can tell this is a powder keg just waiting to explode right now. I mean, this is... Right now, both players are just sizing each other up. I'm just keeping my units out of his range, preparing for the eventual attack. I know that in about 1 or 2 days I have to attack. So just move in, and you can tell this is going to be absolutely wild. And now I build a Neo-Tank. Come to think of it, I probably should have built a Neo-Tank on my strong side rather than my weak side. Looking back on this play right now, sure, this Neo-Tank can hand anti-air, but overall I'm not very pleased with this play. This attack would have been so... This attack would have had a Neo-Tank spearheading it. Instead it won't. So... yeah, splitting my forces up like that, when it's clear that this is where I need to apply pressure, not my finest moment, to be honest. But yeah, Femboy continues to move his... Oh, look at that artillery conga line. I mean, this is just insane. And he's preparing his wall pretty well. Look at that. That is terrifying. That is absolutely terrifying. Look at that! Oh my god! Someone please count the amount of artillery in this matchup. I would love to know. I would love to know. So here, my attack comes in, ladies and gentlemen. Boom. Urban Blight. I wasn't sure if maybe this was too early. Maybe I should have built up 1 more turn. But I was like, you know what? No. This is... You can tell that how scary this is. And also, I wanted to pop my Urban Blight on a turn where he built 5 artillery. Because, hey, that means they're going to be a little weakened. It's going to be 9 HP artillery, which are a lot easier to wall break. So, in I come. I start to attack with my infantry. Start to go to work on his wall. This is nice. This gives me a city-boosted tank, which can take down a artillery. And in I come with the battlecopter. And I managed to take down 3 artillery with this initial attack, which is pretty good. It's not... It's a small dent in his armor, but it's a significant one. A Neo-Tank follows it up as well. And I decide to attack him a little bit on my weak side as well. Because, again, this is a convoy of artillery that he's moving up. And every artillery that I can damage means I'm going to be in less trouble later. So I'm happy to sack a few units to make some progress here. Here, I even decide to take a bit of a city boosted shot with my infantries. Why not, you know? And he already has his power charged up. And I know that I'm going to get shellacked next turn. Again, just using my transport to boost my infantry. More neo-tanks. More tanks. Day 14 rolls in. And here Femboy has his powers ready. He can pop his super snipe. But there's not really any point in doing that. In fact, I don't really think he has that many good plays. But he pops his snipe attack regardless. One range to all of his artillery. And he does get some decent shots. Uses his anti-air to kill my battlecopter. But overall, I'd say this is a pretty weak snipe attack. I think maybe he should have waited a turn. But maybe he felt the pressure. I think the pressure that I put on him forced him to pop his power. But yeah, this is... I mean, only like 3 kills with a snipe attack. By grid standards, that isn't a lot. But you can tell he's coming in with a lot of artillery still. Now he's getting his island, which is smart. You got to get that island quickly. That's 4k income that you're just leaving. But again, more artillery. I mean, just look at this. This is cold BLing on the clock right here. I mean, you can tell. If I don't apply pressure, then I'm toast. I am absolutely toast. I mean, all these artillery, they just become stronger and stronger and stronger as the game progresses. So my turn rolls in. I am greatly ahead in income, but you're supposed to do that against Grit. I get a nice city boosted tank right here. And my tanks are coming in as well. I know he has his normal power ready again if he wants to. So I have to keep that in mind when moving in. But I have to start working on his wall right now. Now here, he is overextending a little bit. He probably should have pulled back a little bit more. But here I am setting up for my second attack. And I will have another Urban Blight for that attack. Because again, in high funds, there's just so much value inside. I have to pull back here though. So here I am capturing his com tower, which may seem a little bit ambitious. You may look at this and go like, oh, Manx infantry, but no. This is actually very deliberate. The reason I'm capping his com tower is because what are these infantry really going to do at this point? I'm not getting this property. And these infantry they're not really in range to help out here. So what I am doing with them is I am distracting his artillery. He has to spend 2 artillery shooting on this infantry to interrupt the cap, which means these 2 artillery are not moving up. So I am happy to sack a unit worth 1,000 to delay 2 of his artilleries for 1 turn. That is more than okay. Against Grit, you don't want to be so focused on value. It's not really about value. It's about tempo. That is what you're playing to win against Grit. So sacking units to delay his artillery, absolutely viable strategy. I wouldn't do it against other COs, but against Grit, it is absolutely necessary. So yeah, I'm coming in with more forces, just converging all of my troops here. There is only 1 front. Against Grit, you ideally want there to be multiple fronts, but in this particular matchup, there's only a single front, and it's the HQ. Day 15 rolls in. Femboy can get his normal power ready if he wants to, but he takes a couple of shots here, moves his artillery in. Again, he really wished he had... Again, look at that. I mean, forcing one of his artillery. I mean, he actually shoots with this artillery, so I guess he realizes that he can't hang around with these. Using his battlecopters to block, that's pretty smart. Again, that transport copter getting a lot of value in as well. And just look at how many units there are on each side. I mean, this is absolutely crazy. More artillery coming in. A lot of them are weakened by the Urban Blight, which is very nice. That's going to come in handy later when I need to bust through these walls. There's such a big difference going up against the 10 HP artillery and a 9 HP one. So much easier to wall break. More infantry coming out, even more artillery. This is just going to continue non-stop. And he has to set up a better wall here because you can see I have a lot of forces in this area. He needs to be very careful. Here I continue to capture his com tower. I don't mind. As I said, these infantry, they're not really doing much. I might as well use them to gain some kind of tempo. In comes my fighter. I'm using my transport copter too. I need healthy infantry. I need to kill this black boat and start capturing his lab. There's no way I'm going to rout him. No way. There's no way I'm routing him. And I do pop another Urban Blight. Boom. Very nice damage. I mean, let's count the value here, shall we? 250,000 down to 225,000. That is like almost a Winter Fury level of value right there. That's insane. 25k damage done with Urban Blight. That is ridiculous. And I was very sad about this. I thought I was going to destroy this Black Boat this turn, but it lived with 1 HP. I think I got a slight low roll. Get a nice luck roll here, though, taking down the 1 HP Battlecopter. That was a big gamble, because if I hadn't killed that Battlecopter... Oops, that was not my intention. If I had not killed that Battlecopter... I would not have been able to bust through. So this was a huge gamble. I remember this one in particular. I was like, I could have used the full HP infantry and not the 3 HP one, but I decided to use the 3 HP one, which is a big gamble, but I was able to break through. In comes the tank. I killed the 7 HP artillery, which opens up another city for me to shoot from, killing the anti-air. Again, he doesn't have many anti-air, so I figured if I take down all of his anti-air, then at the very least, my battlecopters will have free reign. Of course, he does have a solitary fighter, but I have a fighter too. And this also allows me to start capturing a bunch of his cities, which is nice, because if he wants to interrupt these caps, he's going to have to focus on them with this artillery, which is not smart. But yeah, here again, sacking a tank to take out an artillery, it's completely worth it against Grit. Using an anti-air to attack too, dealing decent damage, even using my infantry to weaken his artillery a little bit. So you can see he's struggling to reinforce here because he has to move through this very narrow pathway where my units can take pot shots. And now my neo-tanks are coming in as well, and it's time to apply a lot of pressure to this particular lab. This is going to be insane. And it's looking good for me right now. I have twice as much value as him, even more than twice his value. But against a Grit player, you've never won until you won. You've never won until you won. Because here comes the super snipe. And the amount of damage he's going to be able to do with this is absolutely insane. Just look at our value right now. 190,000 to 374,000. Let's look at how he manages to equalize the value here. Boom. Boom. Getting his transport copter into play, that's pretty smart. Boom. Boom. I mean, look at this shit. Takes down my battlecopter as well. Look at the amount of damage he's dealing right here. The amount of firepower. So many of my units are dying here. And at this point, I was like, man, am I gonna lose this? Am I actually gonna lose this? Look at the... Oh my goodness, he even shoots at my Neo tank. Of course, he has to be careful. He might lose the comm tower if he doesn't dedicate more artillery to it. But, I mean, just look at the amount of damage he was able to do here. Absolutely insane. Look at that. I mean, I was like over 200,000 value ahead of him. And now it's 286,000 to 250,000 just from one super snipe. And yes, he's almost beating me on, or he is beating me on unit count as well. Sure, I'm ahead of him greatly in terms of income, but against Grit, that doesn't really matter as much as you think. But of course, I am not going to let up. I'm going to keep up the attack. It's tempting to pull back after such a devastating turn, but you can't let that happen at all. Now I'm starting to capture his lab. Again, I know I'm not going to get it because he has artillery in the vicinity, but that means his artillery has to spend their turn shooting on my units. So again, I'm not going to let up the pressure. I'm going to keep bringing in the tanks. It's a nice city boosted infantry attack here as well, which is nice. And again, once again, just joint capping the infantry on the tower, just keeping his artillery busy, making sure that they're shooting on my units rather than reinforcing the area around the lab. Now my bombers are coming in as well, even though he has 2 fighters on the map. And I'm building another bomber, and at this point I'm like, I should have built a fighter actually. Look at, I don't have anti-air left. And this was something that I noticed at this point during the match. It's like, I don't have a single anti-air on the map, and I have a 2 HP fighter. This is actually terrible. If he starts building bombers now, I'm actually in trouble. So day 17 rolls in. And even though it's looking pretty bad for Femboy here, you can see that despite my insane aggression and my insane value lead, he is slowly but surely building up that critical mass. And yeah, he is indeed noticing the lack of fighters and anti-air on the field, and he's building a bomber, which is very, very smart. And I don't think I actually realized this. Now he has to build a lot of infantry at this point, and this may seem a bit weird, but he actually has no choice because, again, he's running dangerously low on infantry, and a Grit player can't win with just artillery alone. But here I am injuring every single one of his infantry, which is so nice. Also, look at how much I'm interrupting these caps right here. He's not getting the island yet. Here, I do something that I really disagree with. I sack a Neo-Tank to kill an artillery. I think because I was so ahead in value, I felt justified in doing this, but this is just throwing away a Neo-Tank. It's not really worth it. I'm continuing capping his lab, using my transport to get more... I don't really know what I was doing here, to be honest. I think this was a misplay by me. Should have used the transport copter way better. But here, because I am ahead of him, in terms of value, I'm happy to do these little cutesy trades here where I just move my units in. But yeah, the pressure that I'm applying to his lab right now is pretty considerable. My bomber is coming in as well, but he has a lot of artillery coming my way right here. But I am not letting up the pressure. I'm not gonna let him win. I'm not gonna let him do this. I'm going to take that lab. That is what I'm dedicated to do right now. More Neo-Tanks, more bombers. My income is really starting to play a big role now because I can build so many more units than him. And even though he is technically like continuing to build up to this critical mass, this is gonna suck for him if he doesn't wipe me off the map soon. So in comes the snipe attack. And he is able to interrupt the lab cap, and he has to dedicate more resources. He has to kill off the infantry, otherwise I will just join cap. And that's gonna be bad for him. But man, just look at this artillery, man. He's just continuously wiping my units off the map. And reinforcing with more artillery. And now I don't really have that many units in this vicinity anymore. So these artillery will be able to reinforce the front lines unimpeded now. So, and he's building a lot of infantry and also some fighters now, which is smart. He definitely needs the fighters. But I really don't have a single anti-air unit on the field right now, so maybe another bomber would have been more warranted. His bomber is actually gonna have free reign over me right now. There's nothing, I have nothing to attack his bomber with. Nothing. So here, I come with my bombers, and finally I build a fighter. My goodness, that took forever. And now it's just a slugfest around his lab. And here I move in with my other tanks as well. He has to use his artillery to wall his artillery, which is not good. And I am happy to move in my units and sack them just to damage his artillery because, again, I'm playing for tempo. But now I notice something incredibly bad, and that's the fact that he has put a fighter on his lab. And my fighter is 1, 2, 3 turns away, so I actually cannot capture this lab. And that made me really sad because that was like what I was going for right now. And I realize now that I actually will not be able to take the lab, at least not in 3 or 4 days. So I have to actually try and rout him now, because a capture victory is not going to happen at this point. But I am pretty confident in my numbers. I still have a value lead. I still have a big unit lead over him. Day 19 rolls in, but he still has a bunch of artillery, and now this bomber has arrived. And this bomber, I cannot deal with it. This bomber will have 2 more turns of uninterrupted just being able to kill things. And now he's also moving in on the south right here, threatening some properties. And if he manages to take these properties, then suddenly that income advantage that I've been having all game will suddenly be equalized. So at this point, I was starting to sweat a little because I'm like, oh my goodness, I've been piling on the pressure, but look, he's starting to beat me back now. And I'm not going to get the lab because of this stupid fight. I don't have any anti-air. I have 4 anti-air built, but they're not going to be there until like 6 or 7 days. And at this point, I'm starting to think, oh my goodness, I'm losing this. Now I'm only 70k ahead in terms of pure unit value. And the artillery convoy is starting to build up to critical mass at this point. Let me pop another Urban Blight. Boom. So much damage. 1 HP fighter. It doesn't matter though. It still blocks the lab. But I cannot let up. I bring a transport copter back to an APC to refuel it because this transport copter have been valuable all game long and I'm not about to lose it. So I actually built an APC just to refuel it because, again, having transports on this map is very important because you want to bring infantry to the front line. So building an APC to refuel my transport copter I actually think was completely warranted. So I'm like, okay, I can't capture the lab because of this 1 HP fighter, but I can capture all the other properties. But now it's actually time to do a bit of a strategic retreat because with this bomber here, I actually can't do anything. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I need to pull back. So for the first time during the match, I actually have to let up on the aggression and pull back because at this point, if I stick around, I'm just going to continue losing more units. You can see that's exactly what's happening right here. His bomber has come in now, and at this point, I'm like, oh my goodness, I even blunder and I place a bomber in range of his fighter. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm actually falling apart here. I am actually going to lose this particular matchup. He's making a comeback. I didn't apply enough pressure in the early game, and now I'm screwed. Look at this. What am I going to do? He has plenty of anti-air. I have anti-air on the way, but they're not there yet. So I guess I should just build up for another big attack. And that's what I'm doing. I'm preparing for another big attack. I'm placing myself just on the range. I was very upset that I wasn't able to do 1 HP of damage to this infantry, because now he's going to get this city from me, which is not good. I definitely cannot... Like, if Grid is allowed to equalize, then you're in a very bad spot, because he can win when he's behind. Day 21 rolls in, and here I really have to come up with a game plan, and quick. This bomber is preventing me from capturing the lab. He's just continuing to pump out artillery after artillery after artillery. And look at that, he's taking shots at my tanks, doing some very nice damage to me. Now he's building battlecopters as well. And I'm like, okay, if I don't attack here and quickly, look at that, just spamming out the artillery. So I'm like, okay. I finally managed to take out his bomber. That was a bit of a blunder on his end. He definitely should have put some infantry in front here. I don't know why he didn't do that. Again, it's a lot of ranges to take into account on such a big map like this, but I pop another Urban Blight. Boom, look at all the damage it's dealing. He still hasn't captured this property up here on the island. It's hilarious. And again, every time I get an opportunity to take out an artillery with a tank, I take it. He's spreading himself a little bit too thin here, but again, it's so hard. But here, I decide to go in hard. And I come in with my Neo-tanks. So many Neo-tanks right now. My goodness, I get a city boosted attack here. That's like 3 or 4 artillery wiped out in a single turn. And now you can really see, like, this attack, this final attack of mine, it's gonna be the nail in the coffin. So I was able to bring in a strong attack. I really thought at this point that he was gonna be able to make a comeback, but ladies and gentlemen, he pops a super snipe, and then he resigns. And then he resigns. So that was a fun match. That was a very fun match. I enjoyed it greatly. I thought it went a lot worse than it actually did, but looking back at it, I was actually ahead the whole time. But again, Grit just you shouldn't pick Grit on this map. I mean, this entire Quack Cup is just one giant Grit trap, in my opinion. I've seen Grit being picked in so many of these maps right here, but he's just not good. He's just not good on this particular map right here. It's very hard to pull off. So. But again, I understand the temptation to pick Grit in high funds. I really do. I really do, especially when he's available in a tournament map, but it's just not a good idea in my opinion. But yeah, I enjoyed this match. Thank you, Fanboy. GG. Hope to face you again soon. Let me know what you thought about this match. My name is Mangs, and I shall see you guys next time.